Hi everyone, it's Sandra and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling my labor and delivery story, so I would appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe to my channel. I want to apologize in advance for any strange sounds, but London is in her swing down here and the vibrator is on, so you may hear that, or you may hear her humming in her sleep, and the dogs are also in here, so they might get into stuff and make some noise. And I'm also sorry about the lighting, but that's the best that I can do. So I'm just going to jump right into the video. I gave birth to London Rain Decker on August 17th, 2018 at 5 in the afternoon. She was 6 pounds, 10 ounces, and 19 inches long. I believe I was 39 weeks and 2 days when I gave birth to her. My original due date was August 22nd. And what happened was I went to an OB appointment on Wednesday the 15th. It was my regular 39-week checkup, and when he measured my stomach with the tape, he said that she was measuring small at about 35 weeks, so that was like 4 weeks off, and he was concerned, so he suggested I go in for an ultrasound just to check it out and see what was going on. So they set me up to go to an ultrasound the next day. So on Thursday the 16th, I went to the ultrasound, which I had to go to radiology to get it done because maternal fetal medicine was booked at the time. And I went to radiology because they had the same equipment. And the technician took all the pictures and whatnot, and she had to send them over to the doctor in maternal fetal medicine and have him look at them and give his diagnosis. And so she did that and came back to the room, and she told me, she was like, yeah, they want you to go to labor and delivery now because she's measuring small. And I was kind of like a deer in headlights looking at her like, what am I supposed to do? Because my fiance was at work an hour and a half away. He had carpooled that morning because I needed the car to go to my appointment, so he had to ride with someone else. Our bags were still at the house, not fully packed yet. Our dogs were at the house in their cages, and I was just worried about all of these things. And she was like, well, you have to go over there now. Like, they want you to go now. So I left the radiology department and went to the car, and I called my fiance and told him what was going on, and he had to go round up who he carpooled with, and they all had to leave work early to bring him to the hospital. And then I called my mom, who lives 9 hours away from us, and told her what was happening, and she was actually going to the water park with her family that day, which is bad timing, of course. So I got off the phone with her, and I was trying to decide if I should go to the house and finish packing the bags anyways, because we only live 15 minutes from the hospital, or if I should just go straight to the hospital like they said. But I ended up going straight to the hospital, to labor and delivery, which it's all in the same area. Like, my OB is in a building, radiology was in a building, and labor and delivery was in a different building, but it was all like right there together. So I had to go find a new parking spot because where I had been was in a parking garage where you had to pay, and I was about to be there for a while, so I didn't want to be stuck paying a ton of money for parking in the garage. So I had to go find a spot somewhere else where it was free. After I did that, I walked in to labor and delivery, and I told them who I was, and they were like, yeah, you're staying, like, you're not going home now. So I was admitted to labor and delivery at 3 in the afternoon, and they gave me a room, had me change into the gown, and gave me the wristband and whatnot, and they immediately put an IV in and started me on fluids to keep me hydrated because I was only allowed to have ice chips and popsicles from then on. So they started that, and I was about 1 to 2 centimeters whenever I was admitted, which I was already 1 centimeter whenever I was checked at 36 or 37 weeks. I don't remember which one. So I hadn't really made much progress. So the doctor said that they were going to put me on Pitocin, and they started that at about 5 in the afternoon, and that is just a medicine that they put in through the IV that's supposed to like kickstart labor and start your contractions and get things going. So they started that, and then at about 5:15 they inserted this thing called a Foley bulb, which is like, it was pretty much like a water balloon attached to a string that they like filled up and inserted, and it was supposed to like stretch it out. So, and it would pop out on its own once you got to 3 centimeters. So they inserted that, and it was very uncomfortable, more so than a pap smear or a cervix check. They inserted that around 5:15 in the afternoon, and not even 10 minutes later it popped out, meaning I was at 3 centimeters. So they checked, and at 5:30 I was 3 centimeters dilated. And then after that it was kind of chill. Like, I was having mild contractions. It wasn't too bad. I could ignore them. It was just like annoying period cramps. And then at 9:30 at night they checked me again, and I was still like 3-4 centimeters dilated. And then they checked me again at 1:20 in the morning, and I was out of 4, but I was still thick. Like, I wasn't really effaced all the way yet. And then they came in and broke my water at 3 in the morning, which, it was very strange. It didn't hurt. It was just warm and a lot of liquid, and I felt disgusting laying in bed because I was just laying in wet sheets, and I just felt so nasty, and I could feel it, and I hated it. And after they broke my water is when it started to get pretty painful. Like, I was trying to breathe through the contractions. My fiance had made it to the hospital by this point, and he had gone to the house and taken the dogs out and got all of the rest of our stuff and brought it to the hospital. But he was sleeping because he'd been up since really early in the morning to go to work. And like, I was just trying to breathe through, and I had come to the hospital, and I'd been planning to try and go without the epidural, and I don't know how I thought I could do that. I really don't. So, I mean, like, I was like on my knees backwards in the bed rocking, and like, I was just trying to do a bunch of stuff to ignore it, kind of, and like get through it. And eventually he woke up, and the nurse showed him like different ways to apply pressure to like help and stuff like that. And I had, like, they had the monitors strapped to my stomach. Like, one was for contractions and one was for her heart rate. But because I was moving around a lot, they took the one for her heart rate off and did an internal one that they like attached to her head. And it was just like hanging, and they had it taped to my thigh. And that was really weird. Like, trying to get up and sit up to like go to the bathroom and stuff was annoying. And at one point I was on one of the like exercise balls to try and get through them, and like I was trying to talk to my mom on the phone because like she was trying to decide like what she should do, and I was like, yeah, I want you in the delivery room, so I want you to come. So she had to figure out like how she was going to get everything together, and she had to get my grandma and her husband and all their kids together to come do the 9-hour drive. And like, on the phone with her, I'm like trying to talk and getting like, these contractions felt like back to back at the time. Like, every time one would stop, I would try and like get into a new position or something, and then one would just start right back up. And I just kept like, I was stuck in the same spot for a while. And like, I had the nurse check me, and I was like, if I haven't progressed a lot, I'm giving in and I'm getting the epidural. If I'm pretty far along, I'll try and push through. Because they told me, they were like, technically you can get it any time, you just have to be able to stay still for it, because, you know, it's a very sensitive area and they have to be very precise with it. So she checked me, and I was only at like 5 centimeters dilated, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I got the epidural at 7:30 in the morning. So I had labored for about 18-ish hours. Something like that. Close to that. And I got the epidural at 7:30 in the morning. It wasn't as bad. Like, I was terrified to get the epidural, which is part of the reason why I wanted to avoid it, but it wasn't that bad. Like, obviously it wasn't anything amazing, and I felt, like, mainly I just felt them whenever they do the numbing medicine. But I got the epidural, and it kicked in, and after that I felt okay. Like, it was weird, like, I couldn't really move. Like, I had to physically, like, use my arms to move my legs. And we started having problems. Like, her heart rate was dropping whenever I got contractions, so they kept having to make me switch from left side to right side to try and, like, help it, and, like, getting me to sit up and things like that, because you're not really supposed to lay flat on your back or on your back at all, really, when you're that far along, because it, like, constricts blood flow and things. And, like, she was getting stressed out, and I was starting to get really anxious, thinking, like, what if I end up in an emergency C-section, because I've never had any sort of surgery, and, like, that is the last thing that I wanted. And I was, like, getting really, really scared. And around, my mom and them got to the hospital at, like, 10-ish in the morning, I believe. And at around 12:30 p.m. they checked me, and I was 90% effaced and 6-7 centimeters dilated, and I was at a -1 station. And then, you know, they left me alone for a while. I was still, like, they had, like, shut the Pitocin off to give her a break because of her heart rate dropping and her getting stressed out. And, like, once they saw that she was, like, okay again, they started it back up slowly. And they were, like, changing the dosage and things like that. And then at 3 in the afternoon on the 17th, they checked me again, and I was at 9 centimeters. And, you know, they were like, just let us know when you start to feel pressure, because that would mean that it's pretty much time to start pushing. And so after a while, I was like, I felt weird calling the nurses and saying anything, so I kind of, like, stayed quiet and, like, kept to myself, which is bad on my part. But eventually she came back in, and I was like, yeah, I feel a little something, which I had the epidural, so I couldn't feel much. I started pushing at about 4:25 in the afternoon, which, like, the nurse was in there and was doing practice pushes with me. So it was just her, and, like, they had to move the bed pieces and put my legs in the stirrups, and they had my fiance counting, you know, you do the 10 seconds, like, you're supposed to push for 10 seconds 3 times per contraction, and they had me do that until you could see the head. And once they saw the head, that's when they called in everyone else and the doctors to officially deliver her. So I only ended up pushing for about 35 minutes, and she was born at 5 o'clock on the dot. I tore mildly. I think I had about 3 stitches. Wasn't that bad. I felt nothing. Like, I'm not saying I literally felt nothing. Like, I felt the pressure that I needed to feel to know when to push, but there was no pain. I was completely fine, and I pushed her out fine. She was pretty small, though, so that probably helped a little bit. And, you know, they took her, put her on my chest. My fiance cut the cord, and they had this thing where they do skin to skin for the first hour before they take them and, like, weigh them and measure them and do what they have to do with the baby. So I had her on my chest, and, you know, we were taking pictures and whatnot and seeing her, and she's pretty much my twin. Like, she looks just like I did as a baby, and it makes my fiance kind of mad that she didn't get any of his features, but I'm sure something will change once she starts getting older. But they did all that, and they stitched me up and had put me back together, like, put the bed back together, and, like, I just chilled in the bed with her. People were coming, and like, my mom was there, my grandma was there, his dad and grandma and stepmom came back to see her and everything else, and, like, we just hung out. And then they weighed her and everything. Like I said, 6 pounds, 10 ounces, 19 inches long. And then, like, after they did that, they gave her back and did the regular stuff. And we were discharged from the hospital on Sunday afternoon. I was technically in labor for exactly 24 hours from the time that they started Pitocin to the time that she was born. I was in the hospital for 3.5 days, and the entire time that I was in the hospital, I had that IV. Like, after she was born, they detached the bags, but I still had the needle in my hand in case they had to reattach anything. And after she was born, they didn't have to have the cuff on me and the thing on me all the time. They just had to check it periodically, which I had, like, blood bruises around my arm from having the cuff on for so long and it constantly going off and getting so tight with me in all these different positions. So that was kind of painful. And it was annoying how long I had that in my hand, and I hadn't eaten in so long. Like, I ate the morning before my appointment at like 11 in the morning. I had 3 leftover Texas Roadhouse rolls, and I could not eat again until after she was born, which was like, I didn't eat for like 30 plus hours, and I was miserable and so hungry. And as soon as I could eat, I was like, yeah, get me my KFC, like, now. So they went and got my KFC and brought that back to me, but I was too worried about the baby at the time, so I didn't eat for a while. And by the time I did eat, it was kind of cold, but it was still good, whatever. And, like, after she was born, they, stopped the epidural, they came in and took it out, and I wish I could have just stayed on it the whole time, because afterwards I was in so much pain. Like, the cramping from breastfeeding, like, no, I never knew about this for some reason. Sorry, that was a hiccup. Like, I didn't really know about this, and no one had told me about the whole, like, cramping from your uterus still contracting afterwards, and breastfeeding, and it, like, sending the signals. So whenever I was trying to feed her, I was getting the worst cramps. Like, they were so painful, and I was just so uncomfortable. And, like, I was getting, like, pain meds that I could get, like, every 6 hours, I think, but, like, the doctors weren't coming when they were supposed to come, so it was a lot longer in between the medicines, and, like, they worked for a little while, but not completely. I was still in a lot of pain. I was super swollen down there, and it hurt for me to sit up on my, like, sit up normal. I had to lay down pretty much the whole time, or lay back, so my tailbone was really sore from sitting back on it, like, the way I was. And, sorry, I ran out of storage and had to switch cameras, but, like I said, I was just super uncomfortable and crampy. And after they removed the epidural and everything, like, once I started regaining feeling my legs, I had to go to the bathroom twice with the help of a nurse, and after that I was free to get up whenever I wanted to. I wasn't attached to an IV anymore, but like I said, I still had it in my hand. I didn't have to have the cuff on. They would just come in and check me every couple hours. So I could finally go to the bathroom by myself, and, I was having to use the Perry bottle and the witch hazel pads and cream and pads and the mesh underwear and the whole 9. And then, like, I was finally able to eat. I was getting the food that the cafeteria was bringing, which wasn't very much for someone like me. I was starving still, pretty much, but it was whatever. And I was finally able to shower, and I felt a lot better after I showered and was clean, and I was just spending time with her. Like, she stayed in my room, except for when they took her to do her tests, and took her to do her bath and what else. But all of her tests were fine. She passed her hearing test, her jaundice levels were normal, and they sent off her blood to check for everything else, which I won't get those results back for a little bit longer. It should be kind of soon, though. And then, Like, I didn't really get much sleep because, like, I was up with her, and when she was sleeping, like, I would lay her into the little cart thing that they give you for them, and I would try and sleep, but, like, I would, like, imagine hearing her. Like, she wasn't actually crying, but I thought I heard her crying, so I kept waking up, and I was having to do skin to skin because she was getting cold. Like, her body temperature would drop, so I would have to do skin to skin, and, like, we just chilled and hung out. My mom and them came and visited before they left and went to go back to South Carolina. His family visited and whatnot, and it was just like the aftermath of everything, just chilling and everything else. I was starting to get ready to go home. I felt so guilty about the dogs. Like, I hated having to leave them at the house so much, but I tried not to think about it too much. And then finally, on Sunday, we had to go to this class where they showed you how to burp them and bathe them and don't shake them and how to safely sleep and everything else. So we took that class, and then we were able to leave, which right before we left is when they finally came and took the IV out of my hand. So I had an IV in my hand for, what, like 3 days straight? Like, that was like the worst thing ever. I've still got marks in my hand where it's like healing, because like the needle is like embedded under your skin, and it's pretty like long and deep, so it was really weird. But they finally took it out and gave me all my discharge papers and told me to call my pediatrician to set up her first appointment and everything else. So I did all of that, and we were able to go home. And we came home, and like, I was so nervous about how the dogs were gonna be, because our German Shepherd is only 7 months old and she's super hyper. So I was scared that she was gonna be a pain. And then our Dachshund Nix, she like is obsessed with me, so I was scared that she was gonna get jealous. But they both were literally like night and day. Like, we came home, Rhea was completely calm, knew not to jump around and jump on us and jump on the baby, and Nix was protective of her and, like, you know, not like jealous and mean, but like cares about her and wants to know she's okay all the time. So I was really glad for that. And we settled in at home and started to get into the swing of things, and yeah, like, I'd say it was a pretty decent, like, typical labor and delivery. I mean, it was long, but they tend to be. I was lucky and didn't have to push for very long, and didn't have like a huge tear or anything. Like, I just had a small one. They said it was surprisingly small for me to be a first-time mom, and I feel good now. I've been healing. It's just mild uncomfortableness every once in a while, and yeah, so I think that's it. Hi, Piggyville. Hey, get down. Hi, Piggyville. So here is London. Her was sleeping. Oh, yep, there's Rhea. Her was sleeping down there the whole time. He's awake now? Are you gonna get up? Hi, Piggyville. Hi, Piggyville. So thank you for watching my video, and please like and subscribe before you go. I would greatly appreciate that. But yeah, that's it for this video.